Geoff Molson says he likes the direction his team's going in, and Josh Anderson finally scored a goal. This is Hockey Inside Out. Hello and welcome to another edition of Hockey Inside Out. I am your host, Jessica Rusnak. Joining me this week, we have Stu Cowan from the Montreal Gazette. We have former NHLer Rick Green. Of course, he's a Stanley Cup champ and former assistant coach with the Montreal Canadiens. And we have the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Pat Hickey joining us this week. Hello, Pat.
How you doing, Jess?
Very good. Happy that you're on the panel this week. So at the 25-game mark, the Montreal Canadiens sit in 6th in the Atlantic Division. Not an easy division to be in, but at the NHL's Board of Governors meeting, Geoff Molson says that he likes the direction his team's going in. He said the coaching is going well. They've got some good leadership around the team and some good developmental programs for their players. Do you agree with what Geoff Molson's assessment is of this team so far? Pat, since you're our special guest this week, let's get your thoughts.
Well, raise your hand if you thought that the Canadiens would be 2 points out of a playoff spot at this position of the season. I think they've done a good job. Again, they've dealt with some injuries. They've dealt with them very well. I think that the depth that we've been talking about on defense has shown itself. You got 4 defensemen now on the injured reserve list, and they haven't really missed a beat there. They've played some stinker games. Most of the games, though, they've been competitive. They have a goaltending situation they still have to sort out. They have one goaltender too many, and that's hurt them a little bit. But I think under the circumstances, they've done a pretty good job.
Yeah, they're 1 point behind where they were last season after 25 games. They're 11-11-3 now. They were 12-11-2 last year. And it was after this point, it was game 26 where Sean Monahan got hurt, and then more injuries started piling up, and then things started to fall apart. So Geoff Molson's obviously going to put a positive spin on everything no matter what, but I can see where he's coming from because, you got Doc out for the season after the second game. You got Alex Newhook out now. You got David Savard out. You got Jordan Harris out. You got Arber Xhekaj out. You got Harvey Pinard out. I don't know if I'm leaving anybody off that list. It keeps getting longer all the time, it seems. But with all the injuries they've had and also carrying 3 goalies, which is not a good situation for anybody, to be 1 point behind where they were at this point last season, you can say it's not progress. But I think when you factor in all the injuries and sort of turmoil they've had because of that and with the goalie situation, there is some reason for optimism moving forward. Again, my biggest concern is a concern that I've had for this team for a long time is they just don't score enough goals. They have too many forwards who don't score, and Cole Caulfield, who's paid a lot of money to score, hasn't been scoring much this season. But for Geoff Molson, I can see it's patience is a virtue with the rebuild. It's going to take time. They always talk about like a 5-year plan for a team that's rebuilding. This is year 2, so it's not fantastic, but it's not terrible either.
And I think realistically, it's normal that the owner will give a vote of confidence for the people that basically he brought in as far as, the direction where the team is going to go. And, one thing about Geoff, he's pretty, most of the time up front and stating, what he feels and, where the direction of the team is going. But, if you look back, I think the consensus was for the start of the year that I think we figured that it would be a 500 record team, really take a few games here and there, and that's where they seem to be playing out at this point. But if you look at the way that they have handled their young kids and the patience they've shown in allowing these kids to make mistakes, but not take away ice time, and it seems to be working. I mean, you go down the list, and again, partial to the defensemen with the Gooley and the Barron and even Stubel, the latecomer is giving every opportunity to show his stuff, and this is what it's all about. It's allowing these guys opportunities to play and show what they're capable of doing, and the management seems to be all on board with let's continue to show patience. Let's give these guys opportunity, and it seems to be working. Even Slafkovsky, we talk about him improving, and he's going to continue to improve because he's given opportunity. So I like the direction that they're going, and hopefully it'll continue as they try and get through, again, a really tough situation with injuries. But the good news is they're tapping into their depth and giving guys opportunity that wouldn't have opportunity, and see just exactly what they can do for them.
Yeah, I think Slavkovsky's a big positive recently. I mean, earlier this season he looked lost. I wrote a column saying he doesn't look like he belongs in the NHL. He'd probably better go in the AHL. He wasn't using his body. He was losing battles in the defensive zone. Looked nervous when he got the puck. Wouldn't shoot. Was passing too much. The improvement over the last 5 games or so has really been impressive, and especially when Marty put him back on the number 1 line against Seattle with Suzuki and Caulfield. He showed a confidence that we haven't really seen with the puck and without the puck. He played really well, and he's starting to use his body now. And I asked him after the game, I said, when you were younger, did you ever really have to use your body? Because he was a man-child, right? He's 250 pounds at 19 years old. And he said, not really. He didn't have to worry about getting hit or using his body, because guys would just sort of bounce off him. And now he's realizing that what an advantage that is that he has. And I think he's sort of realizing his own strength. I think he's understanding now that he's strong enough to compete against the boards with these guys. And we're seeing it. He's winning more puck battles. And confidence, I mean, Rick, you know that someone who played in the NHL, confidence is such a big thing, especially with a young player. And he seems, I think by saying we're putting him on the number 1 line, putting him on the number 1 power play, it was a real confidence boost for him. Marty said after that game, he says that he doesn't need a confidence boost. And I understand he's a confident kid. He really is. But his confidence it's noticeable on the ice that he's playing a much more confident game now.
The other thing you have to realize, too, is he played most of his career on the big ice, and you don't get hit as often. And I think that was the biggest adjustment he had to make last year, was learning how to be hit.
And the game is slower on the big ice, too. And he talked about that move where he comes off the boards and goes hard to the net. It's harder to do in the NHL because the guys are on you much quicker, and guys are bigger and stronger.
And I have to bring up Strubl's name again, because here's a kid that's has seized the opportunity to get a chance to play, and I'm really impressed with his composure and the way that he seems to be really dependable, and seems to be able to understand what he needs to do to play at the NHL level. And this is again another addition and read, if you will, on just the kind of guys that they have in their organization that are able to come up and do a pretty good job.
And with all these young kids, I've said before that I think, Martin St. Louis is the right choice to have as the coach of this team. He's someone that has a lot of respect, because a lot of these players grew up probably idolizing him, watching him. And I think he's got a good way to get the message across to the players. But at the same time, do you see, any aspect of his coaching that he needs to improve upon right now that is just falling behind, Stu?
There's times in the defensive zone, and Rick would notice this more than me as an assistant coach, where they look like they lost a little bit, like they're scrambling around. You're trying to figure out exactly what the system is. Marty has concepts rather than systems. He said that right from the beginning. As far as game management, I wonder about that a little bit. I was surprised when he hired Stefan Robida to replace Luke Richards. And Robida's done a really good job developing these young defensemen, or helping them develop. I thought they might hire a coach with more bench experience. Things happen so fast behind the bench, and Marty spoke when he first took over about what an adjustment that was. Excuse me, just how quickly things happen, how you have to, be thinking in 5 different directions. He was talking about, when we go from a 4-on-4 situation to a 5-on-5, getting your lines back together and whatnot. But overall, he's here for development. And as you said, Jess, I think he's the right guy for development with this team. And he's developing also as a coach. I mean, he doesn't have a lot of experience as an NHL head coach, and he's developing, and he's talked about that also. But I think he's the right guy for the job at this time.
I think that's the case with all the coaches. There's a relatively young, in terms of experience, young coaching staff, and I think they're developing along with the players.
And with 72 goals for, I think Martin St. Louis is obviously trying to find ways to get more goals, get more production out of his guys. And really, it's much easier to teach team defense, which, as Stu had mentioned, which needs a little bit of, fine tuning, if you will, so they can be a little more organized. But, overall, I think that, through injury and just their personnel, Martin St. Louis is trying to move some guys around to see if they can, if he can get more production out of them, because I know that he would love to see their goals forward go up, and and as we all know, the result from that is if they can shore up their defensive zone play, we'll have more chances than not to win some hockey games.
Talking with the defenseman, though, when I mentioned Robida, talking with Goulet and Kovacevic and Jack-Eye, they really like playing for Robida. They like the way he handles himself. And he didn't have NHL coaching experience. He was coaching midget AAA before the Canadians hired him, but he did have experience in player development with the Toronto Maple Leafs. And again, this is all about player development right now. And all of the young defensemen I spoke to, they all said the same thing about Robida. He's calm, he's cool, he doesn't yell and scream behind the bench. You come back, it's a pat on the back. He does a lot of video work with them, showing the mistakes they made and what other options they might have had. It's a positive vibe. Ricky remembers the young defense. I'm sure when your early days in the Capitals, you didn't enjoy coming back to the bench getting screamed at. Nobody knows they made a mistake more than the defenseman himself. So he's for the development of these young guys, and the proof is in the pudding. You see how these young defensemen are coming along, and Jaden Struble is another example. We're talking about confidence for a kid coming up from the AHL to the NHL on short notice. To play with the confidence he's shown with and without the puck is really impressive.
And they're given the opportunity, even though they do make mistakes. They're not sat on the bench and they're thrown back out there. So the guys know that going in there that, hey, listen, I made a mistake, but I'm going to get an opportunity to correct it or not do it again. So that mindset is a huge bonus, especially for the young guys, and the defensemen are ones that usually are called out when they make some gaffes out there, and it does result in goals against, chances against, but ultimately it's a learning curve for them, and they're not afraid to put them back out and let them learn from their mistakes.
But there's going to be some real good internal competition on the blue line once Savard comes back and Harris comes back and Jack Eye, sent down to the AHL. There's going to be real, how do you take Struble out of the lineup right now, the way he's playing? So it's going to be, that's a good thing. There's going to be some real internal competition on the blue line amongst a bunch of young guys for jobs.
Now, the big news that we have to get to is Josh Anderson. He finally found the back of the net. It was an empty net goal, but, it was still needed some precision to get that goal in. And do you think that this will now help him open up the floodgates and be able to find his goal-scoring touch again? How do you see this first goal helping Josh Anderson along the way? Rick, we'll get your thoughts first.
Well, it's interesting because after the Florida game, I bumped into Martin St. Louis, and he said, you know what? This is just the turning point of Josh Anderson. He felt that not necessarily just the fight alone, but that was something that was going to light him up a little bit. And mind you, he scored in the open net, but he is showing much more intelligence with the puck, making some good plays. And, like I said before, there's a big part of this game that's a mental part of it. And, if he can get that back in the right place, I think he can be effective because he's trying, and every game he's given opportunity. Martin St. Louis is using him a lot, wants to get him back, wants him to have success. So that's a bonus for him. And I think the character of Anderson, we all know that he's going to do his very best to try and get his act together. So empty net goal, doesn't matter, got it. But its overall game, I think, is improving and will hopefully continue to improve.
Pat, what do you think about Anderson getting that goal?
Well, I think the same thing Rick does. I think, the confidence, even though it's an empty net goal. The last goal he scored last March was an empty netter as well. It's one of those things that, all it takes is a little bit of confidence. And you feel that now he doesn't have to answer, when is he going to score his first goal? That's out of the way now. He can now concentrate on, sometimes when you're trying too hard to score, you've been in a little bit of a slump. You're trying too hard to do things, and now some of that weight has been taken off him. He still has to play better. He has to finish better. He's still got the speed out there, and just a question of getting some puck luck and playing with a little more confidence. And I think that will happen now.
And we saw how much Josh Anderson's teammates love him after he scored. They went to the bench. Cole Caulfield was jumping up and down. Sam Montembeault came out of his net to go hug him. When have you ever seen that for an empty net goal for a player? And the smile on Anderson's face spoke volumes. But then when he got to the bench, it looked like he was almost going to start crying. You could see he was holding it back. And then after the game, we were waiting in the locker room to speak with him. We waited a long time. He was in the back, and I think he was getting himself composed, because I think the mental anguish that he must have been going through. And when he came out, he said it was getting like a case of life and death. And somebody said, life and death, it's hockey. He said, well, as a hockey player, it's sort of life and death. He says, you can never take your job in the NHL for granted. Guys are fighting for your jobs. Guys are coming after you. And when you're a big guy who's paid to score goals and you have no goals in 24 games, the mental anguish he must have been feeling. These guys make a lot of money. They live a great life. But a lot of people forget they're human beings also. And the mental anguish that he must have been going through. I'm sure he wasn't sleeping at night. He talked about how he had a good conversation with his grandmother, who told him, sometimes in life you just need to sort of recharge the batteries in your flashlight type of thing and just sit back and take it in. And he said he did that. He sort of refocused himself and got himself back. And we saw he played really well early in the season. He wasn't scoring. Then we saw he went a period of 4 games or so where he wasn't Josh Anderson. He wasn't playing his game. And I think mentally it was getting to him. We saw it come back in the Florida game, as Rick said, and he had to fight at the end. And he's come back and he's played better. But as Pat said, that first goal, what a relief. I mean, it's how can you not feel happy for a guy like that? He handled it well while he was struggling. He didn't duck. He took responsibility. And even though it was an empty netter, they all count at the end of the day. And as Pat said, I think it's the confidence boost that he needed. And I think we'll see him start scoring some more goals as we move forward here.
Yeah, and it was nice, too, to see the crowd at the Bell Center. They knew exactly what was going on with Josh Anderson, and it wasn't just, another player scoring a goal, that it was one that meant a lot to him to get that monkey off his back. So it was nice to see the crowd at the Bell Center.
Too, Jeff, because he spoke about that after the game, about how Montreal is such a hard place to play and fans are really demanding. But he got a really nice applause from the fans after that, and I think it meant a lot to him. I think it meant a lot for Brendan Gallagher. It was his 700th career game, and they put him up on the scoreboard. He got a really nice round of applause. So fans in Montreal are tough, but they also appreciate effort. And Josh Anderson has been working hard. He just wasn't scoring, and to see him finally get that goal was really nice.
And I'm happy. I'm sorry, I was just going to say I'm happy that they didn't add to the anger of Josh Anderson by one of those guys on the team going to get the puck and giving it the first goal of the season, which probably would have happened back in our day.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, Montreal Canadiens fans, they're educated. They know what's going on with their team. They can be tough, but also it could be a really great place to play because of the sport that they're able to give the players. All right, moving on to the rapid fire section. And the Montreal Canadiens, their bad luck continues. The latest is Alex Newhook. He's out 10 to 12 weeks with a high ankle sprain. How big of a blow is this to the Montreal Canadiens? Pat, let us know your thoughts first.
Well, it hurts because he's played top 6 forward most of the season. It tests their little depth. They have more depth on defense than they do up front, and so we'll see how that plays out. It just means a lot of juggling. You're trying to create chemistry on lines, and when you take a key player out like that, it hurts.
Yeah, he was tied for the team lead in goals when he got hurt with 7. And we saw him after the game the other night coming out in that little scooter thing with one leg up on the scooter and pushing with the other leg. We've seen that before, going back to Shea Weber and Josh Anderson and other guys. I guess they I don't know if they rent that thing or they just own it and leave it in the back of the room and wait for the next guy to get it. But big blow. I mean, high ankle sprain is a hard injury to recover from. 10 to 12 weeks, and even when you recover, it's easy to injure it again. I really feel for him. A new team, fresh start, matched his goal total from last season with Colorado, I believe. He was just starting to roll, right? He had that little struggle earlier when he was put at center because of Kirby Dach injury. We saw he's much better as a winger. They were playing him with Suzuki. They were starting to work there. Things were coming along. Everything's going great, and then this happens. And this team is cursed. They really are with injuries. I mean, they changed the training staff. They fired Graham Reinband. They brought in a new team doctor. They did everything, and at the end of the day, it's the same result. It's just really, really bad luck. And how do you prevent that injury that Newhook had? He slides into the net, very similar to Josh Anderson last season, high ankle sprain. But another big blow. I mean, 2 of the key young guys in this rebuild for forwards, Kirby Dach and Alex Newhook, and both gone. Dach gone for the whole season, and Newhook gone at least 10, 12 weeks, so 3 months, basically, the majority of the season, he's going to be gone. So a big blow as far as development, a big blow as far as getting some chemistry on lines, as Pat said. And a team that struggles to score goals, you're losing a guy who was tied for the team lead in goals when he got hurt.
Real tough loss. Feel bad for the kid. I mean, he was starting to find his game, and like you guys said, he was getting opportunity and he was finishing, and he was in a good place. And of course, every time they seem to get an injury, it's not like for a week to 10 days. It's knocked them out for two or 3 months. And it's just, how you put your finger on something like that other than just bad luck. And, it's unfortunate that he's going to be gone for that period of time, and tough injury to come back from. And he'll be sorely missed because he was doing a pretty good job and was in a good spot before he got hurt.
I want to now get your thoughts on management's move to send Arbor Jackeye down to the Laval Rocket. Is this the right move? Rick, you kind of seem like you're nodding your head. Are you okay with it?
I don't mind that. He hasn't played in 8 games. For your game to get where it should be, you've got to play. You get your conditioning. You got to get your timing. And here's a kid that's going to go out and, obviously Laval would be very welcoming in having that kind of guy present on the blue line. But to help his transition, Jackeye, from being practice only to game conditions, I think it's a good thing. It's going to help his game, and it'll prepare him for when he's ready to come back up and step in there and be able to contribute the way he did before he got hurt.
Just to backtrack just for a second, I think I said I could match this total last year. Actually, he had 7 goals with the Habs. He had 14 last year, but he played all 82 games with Colorado last year. So it just shows you how the Habs are jinxed. You had a guy who doesn't miss a game last year, then he comes in and gets hurt. Going for Jackeye, it looked like it was another shoulder injury, the opposite shoulder that he hurt last season and required surgery. When he was sidelined, the Habs were on the road for almost 2 weeks, so he never had a chance to practice with the team. He came back, he skated twice. I don't think they're going to let him just have one practice with the team and then throw him back into a game. I think it was the right thing to send him down to Laval. It's interesting. A guy who was never drafted and he's never played a game in the AHL. So go down there, he'll get to play some big minutes, test the shoulder, see how it feels. And as I mentioned earlier, there's competition on the blue line, and I think he knows that now. Him getting sent down, and they haven't told him like exactly how long he's going to go down for. So I think this is sort of the first step in the organization as this development and this rebuild continues, saying, okay, guys, there's nothing guaranteed here. You had a good rookie season last year. You're a big, tough guy. We can use you, but nothing's guaranteed. So you got to go down to Laval and show that you deserve to come back up. But I think a lot of it had to do with just the fact that he had been away from the team for so long, hadn't practiced with the team. You can get out of game shape pretty quick when you're not practicing and playing. But it will be very interesting to see how long they leave him down there before we see Arbor Jackeye again, because he brings a physical element that this team needs. But Jayden Struble, we talked about earlier, Jayden Struble's play has something to do with this also, because how do you send Jayden Struble down to Laval right now after he's played so well?
Arbor Jackeye will be back with the Canadiens next week.
Yeah, I wouldn't surprise us. I think you're probably right, Pat. I think it's a lot of things went into it, but I think Struble playing well also factored into it also. But I think they'd want him to get down there and play some games and get his timing back and then come back. And for a guy who's never played a game in the AHL, it might be a little bit of an eye-opening experience for him also.
Allow him to play every situation possible, and maybe they should put him up on the wing.
Well, next week, we could be talking about that on Hockey Inside Out, so make sure you tune into our episode the upcoming week. Now, Cole Caulfield, he hasn't been scoring on a consistent basis. Should fans start to get worried about that? Pat, what do you think?
Oh, he's getting shots. I think one of the things that he has to deal with is people know who he is. He's not going to sneak up on anybody. He's getting shots. He's getting opportunities. And we'll just have to – he's going to have to play his way out of it. He's going to have to make some adjustments to get some ice time, to get some space on the ice. And I'm not going to worry about him. He's got 6 goals. I think he's second in the league. There's a bunch of guys with 7 goals and things like that. But he's getting opportunities, and that's the important thing.
Well, he's on pace to score 23 goals. I don't think that's what anybody expected this offseason when he signed the new contract. He's paid to score goals. He expected to score goals. As Pat says, he's getting a lot of shots. He leads the team with 91 shots. That's 31 more than Nick Suzuki, who ranks second. But they're not going in, and I wonder how much this might be a result of the shoulder surgery. Has he maybe lost a little bit of a zip on the shot? It doesn't seem to come off his stick the same way it did last season, at least from my viewpoint. He's getting lots of chances, but they're just goalies are saving them. He likes shooting that high short side shot a lot, and you see goalies are playing it more now. They're coming across and standing up and taking that spot away from him. He's a natural born goal scorer. He's always been able to score. The goals will come, but I wonder, as any guy coming off a surgery, I wonder if the shoulder surgery might have something to do with maybe just losing a little bit of speed on that shot, and that might be a difference between the puck going in the net and not going in.
For me personally, I think it's a little bit of the opposition quite aware of tendencies of Cole Caulfield, and almost cheating to the point where they know where he is most of the time. They know what he's going to do, and they're kind of plug that hole up to make it real difficult, or make it make it a perfect shot for him to score. And I'm not worried about him. I love to watch him. He's always involved in the play. He's always moving. He's in and out of different areas. And I think that it's just a matter of time before he finds the net again, because as the guys mentioned, he's getting opportunity. He will finish, because that's what he does best. He's just a little bit of a trouble spot right now, but he has the tools like we've seen before. He'll make it happen.
As you said, Rick, and other teams know sort of his tendencies. They know also Nick Suzuki, especially on the power play, is always looking for him. He has that one spot he likes to score from. And it makes it even more impressive what Alex Ovechkin's been able to do in his career, because everybody knows where he's going to be. Everybody knows what he's going to do, and they still can't stop him. He still scores goals. But for Caulfield, the goals will come. It'll be interesting to see how many the rest of this season, because as I said, right now he's on pace for 23 goals, which I'm sure nobody's more disappointed about that than Cole Caulfield himself.
So then what do you do when you're a player like Cole Caulfield, a young player in the league, and the book's kind of out on you right now? He's obviously not an Alex Ovechkin level kind of player, but how do you kind of reinvent your game a little bit? Like, Rick, if you were coaching, what would your advice be to him?
Well, I would be more concerned if he wasn't getting opportunities. He is getting chances. He is getting to those spots. Unfortunately, everybody's looking for him. So it's somewhat predictable as far as, where the puck is going to go to, and guess what he's going to do with it. But he's still able to get in those holes to get an opportunity to score. And he's got that instinct. Those type of players, they don't come around that often, and he'll find the net.
And putting Slafkovsky on that line with Caulfield and Suzuki might help Cole also, especially if Slafkovsky starts shooting more and isn't as hesitant to shoot. And everybody's telling him, Caulfield's told him, Marty St. Louis told him, Adam Nicholas, everybody's telling him he's got to shoot more. And if and when he starts doing that, it's another option for Suzuki, and it'll make it harder for the opposition to focus so much on Caulfield, thinking the puck's always going to go to him. So I think St. Louis should leave that line together for at least 10 games. Let these guys build together some chemistry. This is a line for the future. This is 3 former first-round draft picks, 2 of them by the Canadians. Let them try and build some chemistry. And if Slafkovsky, that confidence continues to grow and he really starts shooting the puck, and he's got a good shot. If he uses it more often, I think that'll help all 3 guys in that line.
Now, talking about another forward that hasn't scored pretty much at all since the first game of the season is Jake Evans. He only has that 1 goal. What value do you think that he's bringing to the team right now, Stu?
He's an honest hockey player. I mean, he works hard. He kills penalties. He takes faceoffs. But the offense, and I think it's, if you go back to last season, he's got 1 goal in like 40 games. And with the amount of ice time he gets, he should get more than that. He gets chances. We see him get chances. He just can't finish. Maybe a little bit of Josh Anderson syndrome, although Josh Anderson's more of a natural goal scorer than Jake Evans. Maybe if he gets it, I think he scored the first goal of the season for the Canadians too, not just the first game. But it's got to be weighing on him also. But even when it's weighing, he's a hardworking guy. He does a lot of little things, but you need to get more. That even if you're a 4th line center, you need to get more than 1 goal after 25 games.
I think that Jake Evans, any goal he scores is a bonus. What he does out there, that he wins faceoffs, he wins crucial faceoffs usually in the defensive zone, and he's one of their top penalty killers. And I think that's the value that he has to this team. If he scores goals, it's a bonus. He doesn't have to score goals, though.
Hard working kid, shows up every night. Like Pat says, pretty good in the face-off circle and killing penalties. When a team is struggling to score goals, you like to see everybody contribute, even if it's in a little way. And he's obviously not a big goal scorer, but he does try, and he's the type of character that they want. And they're going to give him opportunity to possibly score. I don't think he's going to finish, but he does a lot of other things better than scoring goals.
Now, Habs management has been quiet so far this season, but do you think that they need to make some kind of big trade to help them get over the hump? And if that's the case, what do you kind of think, what kind of trade do you think that they need to make to help this team get better? Pat?
I don't think they're going to do anything. If they do, if they can get rid of Caden Primo, if they could get rid of another player too, I think Joel Armia's value may have gone up a little bit in the last little while. But at the same time, he's playing well for the Canadiens right now. He's probably playing the best he's played in a couple of years now. I don't think there's any need to get over the hump. They don't expect to be in the playoffs. I think that there might be possibility, of moving somebody at the trade deadline. Sean Monahan is the guy you mentioned. I think Sean Monahan should stick around for a few more years here. But certainly, this is not the time of year to be making trades.
Well, they need to trade a goalie, or they need to send Caden Primo down to Laval. This can't continue. And I wonder if Caden Primo wouldn't clear waivers. He hasn't shown anything at the NHL level that makes him look like he's an NHL goalie. He's got a one-way contract, pays him $800,000 this year, $1.1 million next year. A team claiming him has to keep him on their roster. So I would roll the dice and send him down. And if you lose him, you lose him. And if you don't lose him, he goes down to Laval and he plays a ton of games. But I can see a trade maybe combining a goalie with maybe a young defenseman. This team needs to find some goal scoring. Maybe they can find a forward who can put the puck in the net. At some point, David Savard will be traded, I think, before the trade deadline. Veteran guy. Last season of his contract, he'd be valuable to a playoff team. The guy can play big minutes in the playoffs, physical, block shots, kill penalties. But Kent Hughes, I'm sure his phone's ringing. He's talking with everybody around the league. He understands this three-goalie situation isn't good for anybody. He'd like to do something. But the one thing that Kent Hughes has shown since he took over is he's patient. He doesn't rush into anything, so he's not going to rush into making a trade. So I wouldn't be surprised if he makes a trade next week, and I wouldn't be surprised if nothing happens until the trade deadline, because he's going to wait to get what he thinks is a good package coming back for whatever players he trades out.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you guys. There's no this is not the time to make any type of big trade. They have to find a way to get rid of this three goalie situation, and Primo is the guy that I think comes to mind. That it's a much healthier situation with two guys in so many ways. But if you look at their depth on the blue line with the numbers that they have and the potential group coming up, that they've got quite a few players that could play in the NHL, and they're going to have way too many guys, to fill in those top 6 or 8 defensemen in the organization. So they might be, not at this time, but down the road, they're going to have to look at trying to move a couple of those pieces to make room for some guys that they have in mind for playing on their team in the future.
Now, just quickly before we run out of time, why do you think that Kent Hughes has not put any one of those goaltenders on waivers? And I think the most obvious person to put on waivers is Caden Primo. What do you think his hesitation is with him? And why is he not doing that by now?
He obviously thinks another team's going to take him. I mean, he speaks with other GMs about trades, and I guess maybe there's some interest in other teams making a trade, not giving up very much, I wouldn't think, to get him. So he thinks they're going to lose him. But, I mean, at the end of the day, Caden Primo was a 7th-round draft pick. And, the game where this last game, he got beat 5 times to the glove hand. I don't know, Rick, if you ever remember playing for a goalie who got beat 5 times to the glove hand in one game.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen often, and that's a pretty big hole to have if you're an NHL goalie.
And, it's he's been given opportunity. I mean, in the ideal situation would be to get him obviously playing more and doing a good job. It doesn't seem to be in the works for him. He has a hard time getting it done. And, that's probably disappointing for Ken Hughes because obviously his value is down a lot less if he can't get the kid to perform at the NHL level consistently well. And it's going to be interesting to see as we move forward how they address this problem because it is a problem.
Well,
And
he's
it's not
a
as if
3-year
he's-
contract.
he's-
I think he
Not
realized.
as if he's dominated at the AHL level either.
No, and I don't think it's a coincidence that Montembeault was signed to that 3-year contract right after Primo had that really bad game. So now you've got Sam Montembeault now locked up for 3 years. Jacob Fowler, the goalie they drafted in the 3rd round this year, is playing amazing hockey at the university level in Boston. So this sort of pads. You got Montembeault 3 years. You got Allen for another year. And then you hope one of these goalies, they drafted 3 goalies this year, you hope one of them develops. But Caden Primo's a super nice kid when you see him and everything else, but I think the spotlight in Montreal is really bright, and I think mentally it's taken a toll on him. And I think a fresh start's the best thing that can happen for him, the same as it was for Montembeault when the Canadiens claimed him off waivers from Florida. I think, as I said, I'd put him on waivers. If you lose him, you lose him. I think it would be good for Primo to go somewhere else. And if you don't lose him, you send him to Laval and you just play him like crazy. And hopefully he can fix that problem he has with the glove side and improve his games in other ways. And then maybe, a year or 2 down the road, maybe he is ready to play in the NHL, but he certainly doesn't look like he is right now.
Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see what Kent Hughes does with his goaltender situation. Thank you guys for joining us this week, and thank you at home for watching us. And let us know in the comment section below, is it time for Kent Hughes to put Caden Primo on waivers? And of course, if you have a question for the panel, you can leave that in the comment section below. Make sure you like and subscribe to the Hockey Inside Out YouTube channel. And if you'd like to subscribe to the newsletter, all you have to do is go to montrealgazette.com/newsletters to do that. And of course, check Hockey Inside Out daily to get all your Habs info.